Good Thursday evening, folks. Today is June 27, 2024. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandages, and today we're talking about Invest 95L. That is now very likely to become our next named storm, which will be Tropical Storm Beryl. I'll show you the brand new National Hurricane Center probabilities of developments. They're climbing each time, and they're pretty certain it's going to be our next named storm. So highly likely Invest 95L develops into a named storm. You saw it would be Beryl. It is an unusual area for development this time of the year. It's really an area, the main development region, that starts to light up really mid to late July and produces the big long-tracked tropical systems through most of the rest of the peak of the season. Unusual to see it so early. Now, it could certainly be one to watch very closely as we get in the time frame of a week out from now, as it potentially nears land. Right now, it's way out in the middle of the Atlantic, no threat to anybody in the short term, but in the long term, it may be something to watch. Before we get into 95L, I do want to let you know there are two waves out there. One is 95L, but one a little bit closer to home now in the central and western Caribbean. And this is Invest 94L. Low chances of this developing. We're going to focus mainly on 95L. That you can see those odds. They have been upped with the most recent advisory from the National Hurricane Center. 48 hours, 70% odds, highly likely. Within 7 days, almost certain at 90%. So let's refresh ourselves on exactly what the Invest 95L means. Invest, short for investigative area. 95 is just a number. It's a record number. 90 to 99, we circle through those. And then the L is the basin indicator. L means it's in the Atlantic. If it was an E, it would be the Eastern Pacific. C, Central Pacific. You get that sort of deal. So we're looking at Invest 95L. Let's pull it up on satellite imagery now. We're looking at the infrared satellite along with the advisory here from the Hurricane Center showing 30-mile-per-hour winds. It's still a rather disorganized area of thunderstorm that have been getting gradually more organized over the last 24 to 36 hours and will continue to do so as it progresses towards the west. 70% development odds in 2 days, 90% within the next 7. Why I'm showing you infrared satellite here is because this gives us a temperature, or takes the temperature of the cloud tops. The colder the cloud tops, the higher they are up in the atmosphere, meaning the stronger the thunderstorm activity. So colder cloud tops are indicated here of the shades of dark red and even some shades of black there. You notice in the last couple of frames, we kind of see a pulse up of convection. That's indicative of maybe a little bit of a period of organization or strengthening underway in Invest 95L. You saw the odds. It could develop into a named storm or depression within the next 48 hours, 70% odds of that. Switching up the filter now and showing you water vapor satellite, and this depicts where the mid-levels of the atmosphere are dry or are more conducive to tropical development where they're very moist. And moist is the whites and blues and greens showing up here. Off to the north, there are some rust colors, and that's some drier mid-levels. And a lot of this is an outbreak of Saharan dust. You can see this here on the NASA product, a plume of Saharan dust moving its way from the east off to the west, but most of this is located well to the north of where Invest 95L currently is, so likely won't get pulled into the circulation. If it was the case and the dry air and the dust got pulled in, it would choke it off and development would be lowered. Doesn't look to be the case this go around. How about at the surface in terms of sea surface temperatures? These have really been the story, and what's been behind such aggressive outlooks for this season being hyperactive. Only one named storm so far, but of course we could turn the corner and really see an outbreak of highly active weeks ahead with all these warm waters out here in the Atlantic. So this is the main development region. We've got water temperatures at the surface around where Invest 95L is in the low to mid 80s. Sufficient water temperatures for the heat transfer, for energy for these storms to use, 80 degrees and warmer. So we have that, check. On top of that, though, the water is not just very warm on the skin of the ocean, it extends down to a depth, something we call ocean heat content, where you're starting to see the teals and eventually the oranges, yellows, and greens. That's very warm, very deep water, lots of ocean heat content here. It has some deep, warm water where it currently is, but look where it is tracking to the west into even warmer and deeper waters as it approaches the Windward and Leeward Islands, likely by the middle of next week. So it's got a threshold here or an area, a runway to really get its act together and develop. We talked about its location. It's out in an area called the Main Development Region of the Atlantic. This area favors tropical development from mid to late July through September. So it's the end of June. We're not too far off, but it is still considered early. The Main Development Region does give birth to 65% of major hurricanes, 80% of all hurricanes. So it's a big producer because it's just got so much warm water. It's in a favorable environment, and it helps to develop a lot of strong, long-lasting storms. The good news about where it's located is it does give us a lot of time to watch it and monitor for developments, giving any areas that would be impacted plenty of lead time. So based on its current location, this is the average number of days it would take to reach the U.S. coastline if, in fact, it was a threat to the U.S. So look at where it is, 10 to 12 days out. Lots and lots of time to watch this, and that's exactly what we'll do. So since it's an invest, we are getting model data and model plots, spaghetti plots. You've heard that used before. That's what we're looking at here. Each line is a different computer model. It ingests the current conditions, forecast physics, and spits out what it thinks may happen, what its solution would be. So it takes a diagnostic and then gives a prognosis. That's what we're seeing here. Pretty good consensus on it moving almost due west towards the Windward-Leeward Islands, getting driven mainly from a dominant ridge of high pressure in the middle of the Atlantic that's forcing it west into the Caribbean, where there is even deeper, warmer waters that awaits it. There's very good clustering here, pretty much right through Jamaica, Dominican Republic, Haiti, south of Cuba, for potential threats to land at that point in time. We're talking about 7 to 9 days out from there. Now let's compare the two long-range global models, the European versus the American. You can see them correlated there, red and yellow. Let's go out in time and jump ahead to Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Monday morning, right? 4 days out. And both models here show clustering. These are isobars when they're tightly packed together like the yellow the American is showing. That is likely a strong tropical storm, if not hurricane by this point, according to that model. And then the red isobars here on the European are not as tightly packed together, meaning probably a tropical storm. Nonetheless, notice they are very similar in their placement of the center of what would this time be Beryl. We've got Barbados right here, south of St. Lucia, Trinidad and Tobago, and then further off to the west, the ABC Islands. So here we are Monday morning, 8 a.m. Watch as it moves into the Caribbean what happens. We see a little bit of a dispersion of where the models think it will go. Not a huge difference, though. They're pretty close. They're both in the Central Caribbean at this point, south of Jamaica. But the GFS here has it just to the southeast of Jamaica. Tightly packed isobars, pretty potent system there. European, not too far away to the south and west, also tightly packed isobars. Likely a stronger system there, if not getting stronger by that point. This is middle of next week. And then we fast forward a couple more days to almost this same time, 7 days out from now. And we've got both models showing a potential threat to South America, or excuse me, Central America, towards the Yucatan Peninsula. And some models, if we went farther out, do try to take this into the southern Gulf of Mexico, Bay of Campeche area. We'll see what happens over 7 days out. A lot of time to watch it, but it could be in the Caribbean by this time next week. So that being said, areas that should monitor the forecast for potential impacts are all the islands of the Windward and Leeward Islands, over into Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, over to Haiti as well, and even over towards the ABC Islands. There could be some impacts for you as we get in the next 5 to 7 days, as what will likely be Tropical Storm Beryl, or maybe even Hurricane Beryl by that point, bringing you some impacts there. Next name on the list, as you saw, is Beryl. We had Alberto last week that topped out as a tropical storm. We'll see what Beryl does, but that looks to be what we'll be watching closely here over the next several days. That's the latest on tonight's update. You can find me on social media if you have any questions, on Facebook, Instagram, X, and I'm also on TikTok. Until next time, have a great night.